by the time the war was over and we were in the 50s, and I think Dick Lee was elected in 53, you know, the city had just gone completely to pot. Mayor Dick Lee got a tremendous amount of money from the federal government to redevelop the city. The city had, you know, all kinds of old manufacturing things, and the city was in a situation like this. I'll show you in this map. This is a map of the end of the 19th century. This is Audubon Street. There's a whole bunch of individual houses. So in those days, factories were built right in the middle of places where people lived. See, where the neighborhood music school is, this was a big factory. Places like this street were just in rack and ruin. The old houses were falling apart. There were these big factories, many of which had been operating for a long time. So he got more money than any other city in the country in redevelopment to tear down the factories and to, you know, redo them. And the whole idea during that period of time is get rid of the old stuff, tear it all down, put in something new that's going to be great. When all this money was coming in, places like the Symphony and places like Neighborhood Music School began to say, wait a minute, you know, maybe we can get in on this thing. Maybe we could go down and see the mayor and see if we can get a way to build a neighborhood music school in another place, like downtown. And the Symphony was like, ooh, now is the time we're going to get out of Woolsey Hall. Neighborhood Music School Board and the Symphony Board came together and said, we're never going to do it as individual agencies here. Let's form an arts council. This is in 1964. Let's form an arts council that will deal with the city and see if we can get better art spaces for us. So they got started, and after a year or so, they discovered that they were all arts people, but they didn't really, you know anything about, you know, building or how to deal with it. And they talked to the city seemed to be talking another language. So the woman that was the president of the art, not sure she was the president of the Arts Council. She'd been president of the Symphony or the Neighborhood Music School, one of those. Her name was Lisa Robertson. She was from Germany, and or maybe Austria. So she said, I tell you what, we should go talk to a lawyer. I know Newton Skank, who is at Wigan and Dana, and we'll just go down and talk to him because he's actually he's on the development commission, and he's done a lot of work with the city. He works with Dick Lee, knows him. So she goes down to Wigan and Dana by herself, walks into Newt's office and says, you know, Newton, you know, we need you. We need you to help us with the Arts Council. And he said, oh, Lisa, I don't really know anything about arts. I'm just a bricks and mortar man. And she said, that's what we need, a bricks and mortar man. He then said, all right, well, I'll come and meet with you. And the Arts Council didn't do a lot of thinking about where it wanted its office. In fact, an office building was never actually part of this. We had a president, whose name was Jerry Kagan, who was an architect. And he really always dreamed that we should have an office in this. He had sort of grandiose ideas about the Arts Council. A lot of us didn't think that way. I mean, we thought the Arts Council really shouldn't be hugely visible. We should just be making things happen. You know, we know we can do it. George Lawrence, who was the developer, said we could have a choice. He said, I'll give you a townhouse over here. We could have one townhouse that could be the Arts Council's townhouse, and we would own it. Or we could, he would give us $150,000 to build for a building. And everybody wanted to have the building. And our dream was that we would become a sort of a living room for Audubon Street. That we would have a space where, which was spacious, that maybe had a little coffee shop in it, that maybe would, video was just beginning to be important, and people actually had videos of things that they did. So we could show videos of all the different arts that were going on. People could use this as a place to, you know, show off all it. We would be doing a service for everybody. So they went to the foundation. They got money from the foundation. They hired a man named Charles Brewer, who was a professor at the School of Organization the School of Art and Architecture, and they created a plan which had 4 principles. And the principles were that there would be an art center, that the symphony and the neighborhood music school together, along with any other institutions that wanted to be involved, would develop an art center. And it would not just be, putting up a building with a stage or putting up some building that was at art, visual art, but that there would be institutions that working together formed a whole greater than the sum of their parts. Old buildings that were in the Art Center would be preserved that were good, and new buildings would be to scale, so they wouldn't have things that look totally different from the old building. The center would have some commercial property, so that it wasn't just a street or a center of nonprofits. That there'd be some money that was being returned into the coffers of the city, tax money, and that in one way or another, the commercial property in this center would return money into the arts. This picture over here was the dedication of the Audubon Arts Center and the final finishing of it. And we have Newt here, who is the head of the development, of the Arts Council's development. Dick Lee here. Ben DeLito here. And Frank Lowe, who was the mayor in the late 70s, after Bart Guida. Bart Guida was dead by this time, and John Daniels, who was the mayor for the first couple of years in
Today, I think all of you out there have seen the buildings that have been shown, that have been created over the last 20 years, and you've often driven down this street. Maybe you've wondered what goes on here. Let me tell you a little bit. First of all, we have a music school. It once was a settlement house, and now it serves the entire greater New Haven community with a wonderful program of music instruction for adults and children. And right next door we have the Creative Arts Workshop, which teaches just about all the other arts than music. And going with those two splendid institutions, we have the Education Center for the Arts in the old Michigan Israel Synagogue, which was renovated maybe 15 or 20 years ago as a public high school, release time high school, and youngsters from all over this county, promising youngsters in the arts, come to that school in the afternoon for classes in the arts with professional instruction for which they get credit at their home school. We think we've got a mini school district of the arts here that is a great attraction for New Haven, and it promises wonderfully for the future of our kids who are interested in the arts.
I've been associated with the Arts Council for 5 or 6 years now, the last 4 as its president, and I can't tell how much work every single member of the staff has, I can't tell you how much every single member of the staff has put into this project, the enthusiasm and commitment of our board of directors. In a very real sense, the current board configuration feels very, very strongly that we are the inheritors of the legacy of our predecessors. And it has been a dream that's really very hard for us to think is absolutely now coming true in terms of the original mission of the creation of an art center in this location.